I stood frozen in the gallery, my heart shattering as my sister Sophia, draped in diamonds, took credit for my life's work, and my husband Jamal stood beside her, clapping. The sound of champagne glasses clinking echoed through the upscale Manhattan art gallery like funeral bells. My breath caught in my throat as I watched Sophia Thompson Davis gesture gracefully toward the massive display showcasing my designs. The very campaign I'd poured 6 months of blood, sweat, and sleepless nights into. Ladies and gentlemen, Sophia's voice rang out with that practiced confidence she'd perfected since childhood. I'm thrilled to present my latest creative vision for the Morrison Foundation. My latest creative vision. The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. The crowd of New York's elite art collectors and business moguls erupted in applause. And there, right in the front row, stood my husband Jamal, 6 feet 2 inches of the man I'd trusted, with my soul beaming at my sister like she'd just discovered fire. I pressed my back against the gallery's pristine white wall, designer heels threatening to buckle beneath me. This couldn't be happening. Not here. Not in front of everyone who mattered in the creative industry. Aisha always said I had the real talent in the family, Sophia continued, her perfectly manicured hand touching Jamal's arm. The gesture lasted exactly 3 seconds too long. 3 seconds that revealed everything. My mother Evelyn glided through the crowd like a queen surveying her kingdom. At 55, she still commanded attention in her Chanel suit and those pearls Daddy bought her for their 20th anniversary. Her eyes found mine across the room, and for a split second, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Not surprise, not shock, satisfaction. She'd known. She'd known all along. "Darling Sophia," Mother cooed loud enough for the nearby socialites to hear, "you've outdone yourself. Such innovative thinking, such natural artistic vision." The same artistic vision she'd called unrealistic fantasy when I'd shown her my sketches 3 months ago. The same designs she dismissed as too ambitious for someone who should focus on being a good wife first. I remembered that conversation like it was burned into my memory. I'd spread my portfolio across her marble kitchen island, desperate for just one damn time to hear her say she was proud of me. Instead, she'd barely glanced at the work before launching into her favorite lecture about how I was too focused on career nonsense and not enough on supporting Jamal properly. "You know, Aisha," she'd said while arranging her precious orchids, "Sophia has always been the practical one. She understands what really matters in life." What really mattered? Like stealing your sister's creative work, apparently. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd actually believed Mother when she said she'd changed, when she claimed she wanted to bridge the gap between Sophia and me, when she invited me to submit my portfolio for this very exhibition. I'd been such a fool. Harold Thompson, my father, stood in his usual position 5 feet away from any family drama, nursing a scotch and checking his phone. At 62, he'd perfected the art of selective blindness. Domestic disputes, family tensions, emotional breakdowns, none of it registered on his radar if it didn't involve quarterly reports or golf handicaps. "This is quite the achievement," I heard him mutter to his business partner. Sophia's really making something of herself. Sophia's really making something of herself. With my work, my sleepless nights, my creative breakthroughs. I watched Jamal lean down to whisper something in Sophia's ear. She threw her head back and laughed, that tinkling sound she'd perfected to charm everyone from teachers to boyfriends to apparently my husband. The same laugh I'd heard through our apartment walls last Tuesday when I'd come home early from a client meeting. The same laugh I'd convinced myself meant nothing because surely my sister wouldn't. Surely my husband wouldn't. But there they were, touching, laughing, sharing stolen glances like teenagers with a secret. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. "Hope you're enjoying the show, sis. Some of us know how to make dreams reality." The audacity was breathtaking. Absolutely breathtaking. I pushed through the crowd, desperate for air, when I caught Mother's voice drifting from behind a marble column. "You did what you had to for the family image," she whispered to Sophia. Aisha never understood that success requires sacrifices, real sacrifices. Real sacrifices, like sacrificing your sister's career, like sacrificing your sister's marriage, like sacrificing your sister's sanity. Something inside me snapped. Not broke, snapped. Like a rubber band stretched beyond its limit. I turned and walked straight toward them, my burgundy dress cutting through the crowd like a blade. Every step felt deliberate, purposeful, final. "Enjoying the evening, Mother?" I asked, my voice steady as steel. Evelyn's perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the flash of panic in her eyes. "Aisha, darling, we didn't see you arrive." "I bet you didn't." I looked directly at Sophia, who was now clutching Jamal's arm like a life preserver. "Congratulations on your big debut, sister. Must feel amazing to finally get recognition for your hard work." Sophia's smile faltered for exactly half a second. "Thank you. It's been a long journey." A long journey. 6 months of my journey, to be exact. "She stole my designs and my man?" I muttered under my breath, loud enough for a nearby art critic to overhear. "That's a new low, even for Sophia." The woman raised an eyebrow and moved closer, clearly intrigued by the family drama unfolding. I smiled sweetly at my sister, my mother, my cheating husband. "Well, this has been absolutely enlightening, truly." As I turned to leave, one thought burned crystal clear in my mind. They wanted to play games. They wanted to destroy me for their precious family image. Fine, game on. Because Aisha Thompson wasn't going down without a fight, and when I was done, they'd discover that karma has a very, very long memory. 3 days after the gallery disaster, I sat in my cramped Brooklyn studio apartment, surrounded by financial documents that painted a picture more twisted than any design I'd ever created. My designer's eye, the same eye that could spot a misaligned logo from 50 feet away, had caught something that didn't add up. Sophia's lifestyle never matched her actual income. The penthouse in Tribeca, the designer wardrobe, the monthly trips to Europe, even with her marketing job, the numbers were impossible. Unless someone was bankrolling her dreams. I spread Grandfather Thompson's estate documents across my coffee table like pieces of a puzzle. The same grandfather who'd promised me and Sophia equal shares of his textile empire fortune when we were kids. The same grandfather who'd actually seen my potential, who'd called me his little artist and promised I'd never have to worry about money to pursue my dreams. But according to these papers, I'd inherited exactly nothing. The official document showed Sophia receiving $2.3 million in a trust fund. My name appeared nowhere. Not even a footnote, not even a sorry for your loss consolation prize. I remembered the day grandfather died when I was 16. Mother had pulled me aside, her face a mask of synthetic sympathy. "Aisha, darling, your grandfather's will was very specific," she'd said, adjusting her black Hermes scarf. "He believed Sophia needed more financial security because she's more practical about relationships and family planning." Even then, I'd known something felt wrong. Grandfather had spent hours teaching me about color theory and design principles. He'd been the one person in our family who'd actually listened when I talked about my dreams. But I was 16, grieving, and desperate to believe Mother had my best interests at heart. What a joke that turned out to be. I pulled up Sophia's social media, scrolling through 5 years of luxury vacations and designer purchases. Every post was a slap in the face, funded by money that should have been mine too. My phone rang, jolting me from my spiral of rage. "Aisha Thompson." The voice was unfamiliar, warm, with a slight Brooklyn accent. "Yes? This is going to sound crazy, but I think we need to talk. My name is Malik Johnson, and I believe Harold Thompson is my father." The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. "I'm sorry, what?" "Look, I know this is a lot," Malik continued, but I've been trying to connect with my half-sisters for years. I hired a private investigator and your name came up, along with Sophia's. Half-sisters, plural. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from Malik Johnson in a Starbucks in Fort Greene. At 32, he had Harold's strong jawline and the same thoughtful eyes I'd inherited. But where our father carried himself with cold distance, Malik radiated warmth. "So let me get this straight," I said, studying his face for any resemblance I might have missed. "You're Harold's son, but you've never met him?" Malik nodded, pulling out a manila folder thick with documents. "My mother worked as his secretary in the 80s. When she got pregnant, your mother Evelyn made it very clear that acknowledging me would destroy the family's reputation." The family's reputation, of course. "Evelyn offered my mother $50,000 to disappear and never contact Harold again," Malik continued. "She took the money and moved us to Detroit. I grew up thinking my father was some deadbeat who wanted nothing to do with me." "But that wasn't true?" "Not even close." Malik's expression hardened. "Harold tried to find us for years. He'd been sending child support through a lawyer, but Evelyn intercepted it. She told him we'd moved out of state and didn't want contact." My coffee grew cold as Malik laid out document after document. Bank statements showing intercepted payments, letters Harold had written that were returned to sender, legal papers that painted Evelyn as a master manipulator who'd been orchestrating our family's dysfunction for decades. "She erased me completely," Malik said quietly, "because a black son from an affair didn't fit her perfect family image." I thought about all the times Mother had criticized me for being too ambitious or too focused on career, how she'd always favored Sophia's more traditional approach to relationships and success. Had she been trying to erase me too, just more slowly? "There's more," Malik said, pulling out a copy of Grandfather Thompson's original will. The real one. My hands shook as I read the document dated 6 months before the version I'd seen. In this will, the inheritance was split 3 ways. Equal shares for me, Sophia, and a third beneficiary listed as Harold's eldest son, identity to be verified through DNA testing. Malik. "Evelyn had the will changed after grandfather's stroke," Malik explained. "She convinced him that I didn't exist and that you were too young and irresponsible to handle that kind of money. So Sophia got everything that should have been split between the 3 of us. Almost $8 million, yeah?" The number hit me like a freight train. $8 million. Enough to fund Sophia's entire lifestyle, enough to explain how she could afford to steal my designs and still live like a queen. "Our family's so toxic, it's like we're starring in a soap opera nobody asked for," Malik said with a bitter laugh. "Except soap operas actually have happy endings sometimes." Despite everything, I found myself smiling. "You have Harold's sense of humor, dry as burnt toast." Lucky me. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, 2 siblings who'd found each other in the wreckage of our family's lies. "So, what do we do now?" I asked. Malik's expression turned serious. "We get what's ours. I've been building a case for years. Financial fraud, inheritance manipulation, document forgery. I just needed someone on the inside who could help me prove it. And now you have me. Now I have you." That night, I sat in my apartment with Malik's evidence spread across every surface. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophia. "Dinner tomorrow? We need to talk about your little scene at the gallery." But as I reached for my phone to respond, another notification popped up. A text thread I'd never seen before, accidentally sent to my number instead of Mother's. From Sophia to Jamal. "The wedding venue is booked for next month. Mom's inheritance money cleared, so we can afford the plaza." From Jamal to Sophia. "Can't wait to start our real life together, away from all the family drama." From Sophia to Jamal. "Aisha will never see it coming. By the time she figures out what happened, we'll be in Paris on our honeymoon." My blood turned to ice. They weren't just stealing my money and my husband. They were planning their perfect future on the ashes of my life. Regina Martinez didn't look like the type of lawyer who'd burn your enemies to the ground. Sitting in her sleek Manhattan office overlooking Central Park, she appeared more like a fashion magazine editor than a legal assassin. But Malik had sworn she was the best divorce and fraud attorney in New York. And after 30 minutes of laying out our case, I understood why. "So let me make sure I have this straight," Regina said, her red manicured nails tapping against her mahogany desk. "Your sister stole your designs, your husband, and your inheritance. Your mother orchestrated it all, and your father pretended none of it was happening." "That's the situation," I confirmed. Regina leaned back in her leather chair, a slow smile spreading across her face. "Honey, I've seen some messed up families in my 20 years of practice, but this is next level." "Can we prove it?" Malik asked. "Can we prove it?" Regina laughed, pulling out a legal pad. "With the documentation you've provided, we can prove it, prosecute it, and probably get it turned into a Netflix series." For the first time in weeks, I felt something that wasn't rage or heartbreak. I felt hope. "What's our timeline?" I asked. Regina consulted her calendar. "Evelyn's annual charity gala is in 3 weeks. The whole New York social scene will be there, including every judge, politician, and business leader who matters. The Thompson Family Foundation Gala, Mother's crown jewel event, where she played Queen Bee to Manhattan's elite. The same event where Sophia and Jamal plan to announce their engagement." "Perfect. We expose everything there," I said, "in front of everyone who matters." "Public humiliation," Malik nodded approvingly. "I like it." But first, I had more immediate problems, like the fact that I'd been fired from Morrison and Associates 2 days after the gallery incident. "We're restructuring the creative team," my former boss had explained with the kind of corporate speak that meant absolutely nothing. "Your position has been eliminated." Sophia's theft of my designs had cost me my job, my reputation, and my financial stability. My savings account showed a balance that made my stomach clench. $4,037. In New York City, that was maybe 2 months of survival if I lived on ramen and prayers. I sat in my apartment, laptop open, staring at the freelance job boards that seemed to mock me with their low-paying gigs and impossible deadlines. That's when the idea hit me. If Sophia wanted to steal my work, fine, but she'd never been able to match my creative vision. I was going to create something so brilliant, so undeniably mine, that when the truth came out, there'd be no question who the real talent was. I spent the next week designing a viral digital campaign called Stolen Stories. Each piece featured silhouettes of women with pieces of their lives literally being ripped away and claimed by others. The tagline read, "When they steal your dreams, dream bigger." It was raw, powerful, and personal. Every brushstroke carried my pain, my anger, my determination to reclaim what was mine. Within 48 hours of posting it online, the campaign had been shared over 50,000 times. Design blogs were calling it revolutionary. Ad agencies were sliding into my DMs asking who created it. For the first time in months, I remembered who I was. Not Sophia's shadow, not Jamal's disappointing wife, not Mother's problem child. I was Aisha Thompson, and I was a damn good designer. But my moment of triumph was interrupted by my phone ringing. Mother's contact photo, her imperious smile at last year's gala, flashed on the screen. "Aisha, darling," her voice dripped with false sweetness. "We need to talk." "Do we?" "This little tantrum of yours has gone on long enough. Sophia is getting engaged at the gala, and I won't have you ruining her special moment with your dramatics." Dramatics. The word she'd used to dismiss every legitimate complaint I'd ever had. "You're too dramatic, Aisha," she'd said when I was 12 and complained that Sophia had broken my art supplies. "You're being too dramatic, Aisha," when I was 16 and protested that Sophia got a car while I got bus fare. "Stop being so dramatic, Aisha," when I was 22 and accused Sophia of sabotaging my job interview. Every time I tried to stand up for myself, I was being dramatic. "Let Sophia have her moment, darling," Mother continued. "You'll find someone else. You always do." Someone else. Like I was a interchangeable part in their perfect family machine. "Her moment?" I said, my voice steady as steel. "She's living my whole damn life." "Excuse me?" "My designs, my husband, my inheritance. Tell me, Mother, which part of Sophia's perfect life actually belongs to her?" The silence on the other end was deafening. "You have no idea what you're talking about," Mother said finally, but her voice had lost its confident edge. "Don't I? Because I have documentation that says otherwise. Financial records, legal documents, text messages. Should I continue?" "Aisha. See you at the gala, Mother. It's going to be quite the evening." I hung up and immediately called Malik. "Change of plans," I said when he answered. "We're not just exposing them at the gala, we're hijacking it." 3 days before the event, I sat in a coffee shop across from the Plaza Hotel, watching the setup crew transform the ballroom into Mother's vision of elegance. Crystal chandeliers, white roses, gold, everything. Sophia would give a presentation about her award-winning design work, the same presentation that would launch her engagement announcement, the same presentation that would cement her position as the family's golden child. Except this year, Sophia's presentation was going to tell a very different story. My laptop was open to Sophia's shared drive, the same password she'd used since college, because she was nothing if not predictable. Her presentation files sat there, pristine and professional, showcasing her work to New York's creative elite. I cracked my knuckles and opened the file. Time to give Sophia's audience exactly what they deserved: the truth. I embedded screenshots of my original design files, time-stamped months before Sophia's versions, text messages between her and Jamal planning their affair, bank records showing the inheritance fraud, legal documents proving Malik's existence. Every slide would look normal until Sophia clicked through. Then the real show would begin. Malik appeared beside my table, carrying 2 coffees and wearing a smile that could power Manhattan. "Ready to watch our family implode?" he asked. I saved the modified presentation and closed my laptop. "Let's go make some drama." The Plaza Hotel ballroom glittered like a scene from a fairy tale, but tonight it would become the stage for a reckoning 3 decades in the making. I stood at the entrance in a stunning red Valentino dress that had cost me half my remaining savings. Every eye in the room turned as I walked through those golden doors. 200 of New York's most powerful people, judges, politicians, CEOs, and socialites, all gathered for Mother's annual charity spectacle. And they had no idea they were about to witness the performance of a lifetime. Sophia stood near the podium in ivory silk, radiant and confident, accepting congratulations from guests who had no clue they were praising a thief. Jamal hovered beside her like a devoted puppy, his hand possessively on her lower back. The same hand that had once traced love letters on my skin. Mother worked the crowd in her element, air-kissing Manhattan's elite while orchestrating the evening like a conductor leading a symphony. She spotted me across the room, and for just a moment, her perfectly composed mask slipped. Fear flickered in her eyes before she recovered, gliding toward me with practiced grace. "Aisha, darling, how lovely that you decided to join us," she said loud enough for nearby guests to hear, "though I do wish you'd consulted me about your outfit choice." Red's always been my power color, Mother. Before she could respond, the lights dimmed and a spotlight illuminated the stage. The moment had arrived. "Ladies and gentlemen," the event coordinator announced, "please welcome Sophia Thompson Davis, presenting her award-winning Morrison Foundation campaign." Sophia glided to the podium like she owned the world. She adjusted the microphone with the confidence of someone who'd never been challenged in her life. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Sophia began, her voice carrying across the silent ballroom. I'm thrilled to share with you my latest creative vision, a campaign that represents months of innovative thinking and artistic breakthrough. Months of my innovative thinking, my artistic breakthrough. Sophia clicked to the first slide. Her presentation opened with sleek graphics and professional layouts showcasing her designs. The audience murmured approvingly. This campaign represents the power of authentic storytelling, Sophia continued, clicking to the next slide. The importance of original creative vision in today's marketplace. Original creative vision. The irony was suffocating. I caught Malik's eye from across the room. He was positioned near the exit, ready to prevent any quick escapes. He gave me the slightest nod. Showtime. Sophia clicked to the third slide, expecting her polished presentation to continue. Instead, the screen filled with a side-by-side comparison. On the left, her stolen designs. On the right, my original files with timestamps from 6 months earlier. The audience gasped. Sophia's confident smile froze as she stared at the screen in horror. "What is this?" she whispered, but her microphone amplified every word. She clicked frantically to the next slide, desperate to escape the damning evidence. Instead, the screen filled with text messages. "Can't wait to start our real life together, away from all the family drama. Aisha will never see it coming. By the time she figures out what happened, we'll be in Paris on our honeymoon." The ballroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Jamal went pale as death, tugging at his bow tie like it was choking him. Sophia's boss, Morrison Foundation's CEO, stood up from his front row table, his face a mask of professional fury. The slides kept advancing automatically. Bank records showing the inheritance fraud, legal documents proving Malik's existence, email chains between Mother and Sophia planning the entire deception. "Stop this," Sophia screamed, abandoning all pretense of composure. "Someone stop this right now." But there was no stopping the truth. Mother rushed toward the stage, her carefully constructed world crumbling in real time. "This is for the family," she shrieked, her narcissistic mask finally cracking completely. "Everything I did was for this family." I stepped into the spotlight, my red dress cutting through the chaos like a blade. "No, Mom," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. "This is for me." The room fell silent except for the clicking of Sophia's desperate attempts to regain control of her presentation. "Sophia Thompson Davis," her boss announced, his voice booming across the ballroom. "Consider your employment with Morrison Foundation terminated immediately. Security will escort you from the premises." Jamal, seeing his meal ticket evaporating before his eyes, grabbed Sophia's arm. "I can't be associated with this," he hissed. "My reputation, my career. This is over, Sophia." And just like that, he walked away. The same man who'd promised to love Sophia forever abandoned her the moment it became inconvenient. Across the room, I spotted Harold sitting at his usual corner table, staring into his scotch glass. For just a moment, our eyes met. 62 years old, and he finally looked ashamed of the coward he'd always been. He looked away first. A society matron at the nearest table leaned toward her companion and whispered loudly enough for half the room to hear, "This family drama's better than Broadway. Should we applaud?" I walked to the microphone as Sophia was led away by security, tears streaming down her face. For 28 years, I began, my voice steady and strong. I was told I was too much, too ambitious, too dramatic, too focused on dreams that didn't matter. The audience hung on every word. I was told to be grateful for scraps while watching others feast on my work, my relationships, my inheritance. I was told to be smaller so others could feel bigger. I looked directly at Mother, who stood frozen in the center of her destroyed kingdom. But tonight, I want everyone in this room to know something. I built my life with my own hands, my own talent, my own dreams, and no one gets to steal it. The ballroom erupted in applause, not the polite society clapping Mother was used to, but genuine, thunderous approval. As I walked off the stage, Malik appeared beside me, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. "So," he said, offering me his arm, "what do we do for an encore?" I looked around the ballroom at the wreckage of my family's lies, at Mother standing alone as former friends avoided her gaze, at the empty space where Sophia and Jamal had been. "Now?" I smiled, linking my arm through his. "Now we go build something beautiful." 6 months after the gala that shook Manhattan's social elite, karma had delivered its verdict with surgical precision. Sophia's fall from grace was swift and merciless. The design industry blacklisted her after video footage of the gala went viral on social media. Her former friends crossed the street to avoid her, treating her like a contagious disease that might taint their own reputations. She'd been forced to move back into Mother's Upper East Side penthouse, where 2 toxic women now lived in mutual resentment, feeding off each other's bitterness like parasites. Mother's charity board had voted her out unanimously. Her social circle, built on decades of careful cultivation, crumbled overnight when the truth about her manipulative schemes became Manhattan gossip fodder. "Evelyn Thompson? Oh, darling, we don't associate with her anymore," became the standard response at society luncheons. Harold finally grew a spine, but only after his reputation was already in ruins. He filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and fraudulent financial conduct. The settlement left him with a modest apartment in Queens and a bruised ego that would never fully heal. But while my family's world burned, mine was rising from the ashes like a phoenix. The divorce settlement from Jamal had been generous. His guilt, combined with Regina's legal prowess, resulted in a payout that gave me breathing room to dream again. Combined with my rightful inheritance that Malik and I successfully reclaimed through the courts, I suddenly had the resources to build something extraordinary. Thompson Creative Studio opened its doors in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, just 3 blocks from where I'd grown up. The space was everything I'd ever envisioned. Floor to ceiling, windows flooding the room with natural light, exposed brick walls displaying the work of emerging artists, and an energy that hummed with possibility. My first major campaign, Unbreakable Women, went viral within hours of launch. The series featured portraits of women who'd overcome betrayal, abuse, and systemic barriers to build their own empires. The tagline read, "They tried to break us. We built something unbreakable." Forbes featured me on their 30 Under 30 list. Marie Claire wrote a profile titled "The Designer Who Turned Family Betrayal into Business Gold." But the recognition that meant the most came from young Black women designers who reached out, sharing their own stories of being overlooked, undervalued, and underestimated. I started a mentorship program, bringing 10 young designers into my studio each year. Watching them discover their own creative voices reminded me why I'd fallen in love with design in the first place. You have your grandfather's gift for seeing potential where others see problems. Malik told me one afternoon as we watched my latest mentee present her portfolio to a room full of industry executives. Grandfather. I thought about him often these days, remembering the hours he'd spent teaching me about color theory and composition in his textile factory office. "Little artist," he'd called me, his weathered hands guiding mine as I sketched my first logo designs. "You see the world differently than most people. That's not a burden to carry. That's a superpower to embrace." He'd been right. My ability to see through facades and find beauty in chaos had become my greatest professional asset. It had also led me to Marcus. I'd met him at a gallery opening in the Village, where his photography exhibition explored themes of identity and resilience. He was 6 feet of quiet confidence, with kind eyes and hands that created magic with light and shadow. Unlike Jamal, who'd seen my ambition as competition, Marcus celebrated my success. He'd surprise me with coffee during late nights at the studio, listen without judgment when imposter syndrome crept in, and remind me that building something meaningful takes time. "You don't love me in spite of my strength. I told him one evening as we walked along the Brooklyn Bridge, "You love me because of it." "Exactly," he'd replied, squeezing my hand. "Strong women don't intimidate me. They inspire me." On a crisp October evening, exactly 1 year after the gala, I stood on the rooftop of my studio building. The Manhattan skyline stretched before me, millions of lights twinkling like stars brought down to earth. My phone buzzed with notifications. Another successful campaign launch, another milestone reached, another barrier broken. But in this quiet moment, surrounded by the city that had witnessed my destruction and rebirth, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Not the fragile kind that shatters at the first sign of trouble, but the deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing exactly who you are and what you're worth. I thought about Sophia, probably sitting in Mother's penthouse right now, scrolling through social media and watching my success from the sidelines. I thought about Mother, isolated in her tower of bitterness, having lost everything that mattered to her shallow existence. I should have felt vindicated, triumphant, superior. Instead, I felt free. Free from their toxicity, free from their manipulation, free from the need for their approval or validation. I'd built a chosen family of artists, mentees, and friends who saw my value. I'd created work that mattered, touched lives, and opened doors for others who looked like me. I'd turned my pain into purpose, my betrayal into breakthrough, my wounds into wisdom. As the city hummed beneath me and Marcus's arms wrapped around my shoulders, I smiled at the skyline that had once seemed so intimidating. "They tried to break me," I whispered to the wind, my words carrying across the rooftops like a promise to every woman who'd ever been told she was too much. "But I built something unbreakable.